at least theoretically, at the level of lecturing, we agreed on the fact that there exist methods for accelerating the spiritual evolution. Namaste and good evening to all of you. In tonight's Satsang, I would like to continue from the ideas which I have introduced in the last week. In the last week, which was our first Satsang for the season, I talked about the basic metaphysical concepts. I described a little bit what is the metaphysical part of yoga, why it is very important to have a metaphysical part in yoga, in your spiritual life, and I announced some of the main ideas. The fact that according to metaphysics, yoga, and in other spiritual traditions, there exists an immortal, eternal part of the human being, your Atman, your Supreme Self. That according to metaphysics, this Supreme Self is not the ego, but it can be revealed through spiritual practice. And this spiritual practice reveals something which has always been there. The spiritual practice is revealing, is like a diamond. If you don't know anything about diamonds, you can look at it and think it's just a rock. And then when it's polished by a jeweler, it becomes a symmetrical, shining, sharp-edged, beautiful stone, which is a diamond. So exactly in the same way, the Supreme Self, the Atman, the Self, exists in you, with you, right now, and yet the world is full of pain and confusion because people are not seeing the Self, people are not seeing themselves as the Self, and because of this people live in their ego, and ego produces everything, from war to depression, from obsession to hell. It's all of it the product of the ego. So for the human beings, it's important to go from superficial ego to revealing the self, polishing the diamond. That is the second pillar of metaphysics, which is evolution. It's not only enough that all of you have a Buddha nature. It also takes 1,000,000 years or more to see this Buddha nature, to reveal it, to polish the diamond until it's there, visible, it's shining, it's present. If not, everybody in this room has a Buddha nature or an Atman, but that is potential, because so did Joseph Stalin have an Atman, so did Adolf Hitler, so did whoever you want to mention as a horrible person in the history of this world. All of them had an Atman, and they were God. But they were God, but they killed millions of people, sometimes in horrible ways. And that's why, remember that it's not enough that you have an immortal soul. It's also important that this immortal soul becomes active and is not asleep and stays potential somewhere in your being. So, when we talked about evolution as the main pillar of understanding, that's where we came to the conclusion. Therefore, there exist ways of spiritual evolution. That means you, let's say, you have lived 500 human lives until now, and your diamond is 25% polished. So even you yourself, when you look in the mirror, you start seeing, hey, I'm a diamond. I am something else. I'm not the ego. And then there comes the idea, how can I bring this diamond to perfection quickly? In this lifetime. What if I die in a semi-state of ignorance, and then in the next life, I don't remember anything? Because that's the tenet of this multiple life theory of metempsychosis. That in this life, when you are a child, you didn't remember anything. Maybe you have a strange attraction towards Portuguese language or something, and that may be because you were born in Brazil or in Portugal in your previous life. But besides a vague set of inclinations, you don't have anything. And therefore, the fact that in your previous life you swore eternal love to somebody, man or woman, the fact that in your previous life you swore that you are going to love Jesus in all eternity, the fact that in your life God knows what decisions you took when you were born as a child in this life, you forgot everything. There were only some vague subconscious preferences which are not enough. Life shows that those are not enough. And what I'm trying to say is that many people say, if I discovered spirituality in this life, how do I make sure that if I don't get it to 100% in this life, am I going to make it in the next one? Because in the next one I'm going again to be born as a baby in Russia or in Mozambique. And how will I remember? Who will tell me, remember that in your previous life you were in Phangan and you were dying with desire to reach your immortal soul, and you studied with Swami Vivekananda for 4 years, and now you are a child, you didn't make it to the end, you didn't reach Nirvana, you are not Krishna, you are not Ramakrishna, you are not Milarepa, then now you are a child, you have some vague inclinations, but that's maybe going to be enough, maybe not. And that's why there exists in spirituality this attitude that once you caught God by the ankle of his leg, you hold on strong, because it's like you don't want to miss the train. You don't want to miss the opportunity. You have to hammer the iron when it's hot. And for some of you, the iron is hot right now. And therefore, there exists in spirituality this idea, this metaphysical idea that you want to accelerate your evolution. People can say, if I have been evolving if I had 500 lifetimes until now, and every life is spaced at 400 years distance, and therefore 500 lifetimes means that I've been alive for 200,000 years as a human being, and more than 200,000 years back, I was probably a chimpanzee or a baboon, and then I was a giraffe, and then I was a cat, and then I was a lizard, and whatever I was, like my life comes from billions and billions of years in this universe. But if I take my human life to be 200,000 years old, in 200,000 years I polish 25% of my diamond. I can just sit and scratch myself behind the ears, and in another 600,000 years, the diamond will be polished 100% by itself. That is true. That is a true statement. And my answer to any one of you who thinks like this is, if you want to scratch yourself behind your ears for another 600,000 years, be my guests. Ramakrishna did not. Yogananda did not. Maananda Mai, to quote a female voice, did not. The men and the women of spirituality are those people who first of all understood. First you need to understand. Gurdjieff said it in a beautiful way, slightly offensive. He said, the awareness of our own mediocrity is our first spark of genius. Like, until you don't realize how fucked up this life is, you are not having any genius. You are just eating, sleeping, procreating. Your first spark of genius is like Buddha. When he saw a sick man, he saw an old man, he saw a dead man, and he said, what? I'm going to undergo the same thing? And everybody on the face of this earth is going to undergo the same thing? No way. It's like, I don't want to go there. Until the moment Buddha said the essence of life is suffering. It sounds like a very pessimistic view. But Gurdjieff calls that the first spark of genius. Like, instead of being complacent and going like Jack Bauer in 24, everything is going to be all right. People kept dying by the numbers, and it's the typical in the American movies. Everybody claps everybody on the shoulder and says, everybody's going to be all right. No, it's not. It's not all right, and it's not going to be all right from this standpoint. Buddha said, life is suffering. And Buddha is not a pessimistic philosopher. But he simply said, look at what's happening. There are wars, tsunamis, there are black plagues, there is domestic violence, there is always some turmoil on the face of this earth, and if you are born in Somalia or if you are born wherever you are born, you are going to see hell on earth. And therefore, it's not all right, and it's not going to be all right. That's a fake way in which Svadistanistic people, superficially, they try to soothe each other. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. It's not. Buddha simply shook himself like a man taking a cold shower and said, it's not all right. This is not acceptable. I'm not going to live my life like that. That's completely unacceptable. So this first spark of genius, Gurdjieff said, it should not be the last. Like, it's not enough of you to look in the mirror and to say, I'm a drunk, I'm a smoker, I'm a sexual addict, I'm an asshole, I'm garbage, I'm a failure. Good start. Now do something about it. Stand up to the challenge and start changing that. That needs to be a next step. Not just the awareness of the fact that we are all fucked, the life is miserable as it is. And therefore, human beings in spirituality, they reach sometimes the first spark of genius. And they say, I am not my supreme self. I think I'm my supreme self, but I'm not. I'm an ego full of aggression, ignorance, limitation, possessiveness, greed, and all sorts of other poisons of the mind. There are 7 billion egos like this on the face of this earth. We are all fighting with each other. We are destroying the planet in the process, and a lot of other negative things are happening. The animals are suffering, the plants are suffering, all the life on this planet suffers because of the egos of the people. Because if you invested your money, your stock exchange money in Rio Tinto, and Rio Tinto opens mines and petrol wells everywhere, you don't care. You want your stock to go 10% up every year, because that's your retirement money. And therefore, wherever there is ego and it has an interest, a lot of things are being trodden upon. We are treading upon legitimate things all the time, even when we don't want. I remember, that's a real parenthesis, a loop in it, that somebody was complaining when I was in Canada that the postal services had become privatized. The government sold the post, and the post had become really expensive in Canada. And some journalist made an investigation. Who gains from it? And then they found out that the postal services of Canada had been bought by a mutual fund which was representing the retirement money of the teachers of Canada. So whoever you condemned, somebody will suffer. The teachers of Canada wanted money, 10% dividends per year, so as they could have retirement money in 30, 40 years. But for this, the fund representing them had to increase the postal costs in Canada. Either way, somebody got to lose. That's what's with the ego. Where there is ego, I want to breathe your air and you want to eat my food. There's always something which is going to happen. That's why realizing, the spiritual people have realized, I shouldn't be the ego. I should transcend the ego. The ego is the death and pain of everybody. And therefore, I need to reach to the Supreme Self. And God, or the universe, whatever you prefer to call it, has created a system of evolution, that I'm born in hundreds and thousands of lifetimes, and slowly, slowly my diamond gets polished. The more I live, the less I am a baboon, and the more I turn into an angel or a deva. If I have lived 10 lifetimes, I'm still a baboon. If I have lived 10,000 lifetimes, I'm almost a Buddha. So it depends just of my evolution. Just sitting and breathing, that's exactly illustrated in some Hindu Upanishads, I'm evolving. But that evolution is going to take 1,000,000 years. That's what Paramahamsa Yogananda, a Capricorn yogi of India, very pragmatic with a university degree, trying to rationalize and make things like university level in yoga. When he spoke about this, he wanted to give a clear image. And he simply said, if you have got to live 5,000 lifetimes, and there is 200 years between two lives, that means, because Buddha said that he had 10,000 lifetimes. And let's say you are right in the middle of that. So you lived 5,000, you still have 5,000 to go. 200 years for each, or 400 years for each, which is more realistic according to Tibetan astrology, and you've got to live 1 or 2 more million years on and off, sometimes in a physical body, sometimes in the astral body, like a ghost waiting to be reincarnated. And again, on and off, sometimes here, sometimes up there, sometimes here, sometimes up there. 1 million years, or 2, is a bloody long time. And during those 2 million years, you are going to have your children dying, your boyfriends and girlfriends dumping you, dear people dying, you getting cancer, participating into revolutions, wars, black plague, tsunamis, earthquakes, everything. You are going to participate in this life as it is, because life can teach people only in a very strong way. I'm sure all of you have, and I said it last week, but now I want to approach it from a different angle. I'm sure all of you in this hall have a friend, an acquaintance, a relative, or somebody you know who is a detestable person, who is an asshole, a bitch, who is a very, very selfish person. I'm sure you all know one of those, because the world is full of them. If your friend, the terrible character, is going one day to become a compassionate bodhisattva, because that's what Buddha says, that's what the Buddhist masters say. If everybody is going to become a bodhisattva one day, can you imagine what would it take from the atmosphere, from the middle of nowhere? What would it take to do to your friend or acquaintance to make them compassionate, selfless? It will take 1,000 hammer blows, like a Japanese sword. It has to be hit until it's turned in Japanese steel. It has to be hit and hit and hit and hit, with bad luck, with illness, with pain, with child death, with loss of money and property, and again and again and again and again, until finally the subconscious mind gets so impregnated by banging the head against the wall that something in you starts saying, it's not going to work that way. It can't work that. There must be another way. It's not. Ego is not the way. To be selfish and to be low quality is not the way. It leads nowhere. This is why we like in this school, and we put it in the cinema club, this ironic comedy called Groundhog Day. This Groundhog Day is a brilliant movie. I think it's inspired by high spirits. People think it's a comedy, but it's exactly a man reliving the same day exactly as we live our lives, life after life, and he's trying all the bastardly and all the twisted ways to live life, and eventually he realizes that nothing leads anywhere. And in the moment when he becomes beneficial, loving, compassionate, and detached, in that moment everything opens up for him and he wins the jackpot. He wins the lottery. But not before that. It's the same with the human beings. We live human lives and we do a lot of stupid things until finally our subconscious mind brings us the message, okay, you need to be different. That's why in yoga and in spirituality, we don't believe in this solution that you have to wait and spin your thumbs and in 1,000,000 years you are going to become a Buddha or a Bodhisattva. Because 1,000,000 years is a bloody long time. I don't want to wait even 3 years for something. What about 1,000,000 years? And in those 1,000,000 years, I'm going to bang my head against so many walls that blood and brains will gush out of my skull. So I don't want to go there. That's why the conclusion of spirituality is this. If you realized that that evolution is inevitable, you are in a grinding machine, you are a diamond in a polishing machine. Willy-nilly, you like it or not, you kick your feet and scream or not, nature is going to make a Buddha out of you. I guarantee that according to the metaphysics of the Orient, not only Buddhist but Hindu and others, every person in this room in a number of millions of years will be a bodhisattva or a Buddha. The question is, what will you go through until that time? Therefore, please understand the very simple thing. Evolution is like a river that flows. Where do rivers go? Into the ocean. Can you stop the water from a river to go to the ocean? Not really. Can you stop evolution? No. And therefore, if you can't stop it, the intelligent thing is to go with it and even to accelerate it, since you can't stop it. If I float on a raft on a river, let's say the Nile, and I know that the Nile ends in the Mediterranean Sea, and I'm 2,000 kilometers from the Nile, from the sea, and I'm looking on my watch as I say, I have still 4 months till I will be rafting to the Nile. Somebody comes and says, but I can come with a helicopter, pick you up from the raft, and take you directly to Alexandria or Cairo or whatever is the place where the Nile goes into the sea. And it can last 2 hours. Wouldn't that be preferable? Like, since I am going to end in Alexandria or whatever it's called anyway, why do I want to wait with my bum on a raft for the next 4 months? If you know, but that's the question, because you don't know, because you doubt it, because if you would believe me 100%, there will be absolutely no hesitation. But if you would 100% realize that you are in a process of evolution, that you are possessed by an immortal soul, which cannot die or disappear, and that you are going to go in the wheel of samsara again and again and again and again and again and again, maddeningly, until it drives you nuts, and until one day you reach nirvana, then many intelligent people will say that why should I wait to be reborn 5,000 times and have 5,000 wives and husbands and lovers and deaths in the family and children and lose my legs in car accidents and God knows what else, when I know already the end of the book. Some idiot called Swami told me how this book ends. I know the end of the book, so why am I going to go through all of it? I know the end of this movie. No, so why do I want to stay here and endure all the blows of samsara when I know where it goes? That's why all the spiritualists that have been intelligent, they have simply said, once I realized what is inevitable, I decide to do it quickly. Like, let's get over with it now. No, like I know where I'm going. Why prolong the agony? It's very beautiful that in the Mahabharata, Yudhishthira, the eldest of the wise 5 brothers of the Pandavas, is asked by Dharma, his father. Dharma means a cosmic principle. It means the order of the universe. And Dharma is asking him about 20 questions, like the Sphinx of Egypt. It's a sort of a rite of passage to see if Yudhishthira is truly a wise man. And the questions are very odd, if you'll see the movie or read the book. The movie is much easier than the book, although the movie is 5 hours, but the book is 12 volumes, as big as that. So probably the movie will be your preference. So when you see the movie, you'll see the questions are real weird. If those questions would be asked to you, you would not know what to answer to most of them. The answers are even more weird, and yet they make sense. And the last question is, what is inevitable? We know the American answer to that. In America, death and taxes are inevitable. Yeah? For Yudhishthira, 5,000, 3,000 years ago, whatever, the answer was wise. It was not a silly, humoristic answer. It was the real thing. Dharma asks Yudhishthira, what is inevitable? In general, like this, what is inevitable? And Yudhishthira answers perfectly. He says, happiness. You are all looking for happiness and feeling unhappy at times, and you think you have to fight for it. You don't. Happiness is inevitable because Ananda, Sat Chit Ananda, Ananda which means bliss, beatific happiness, is part of the divine nature. You can't miss it. It's your nature. It's your Atman is characterized by Ananda, by Sat, Chit and Ananda. So even if you want not to find happiness, the happiness is in you already waiting. So Yudhishthira says, the only inevitable thing is happiness, because in the end, all of you will be Buddhas. All of you will be in nirvana with that smile of the Buddha on your faces, because you finally found it. And that's why spiritualists know this thing for sure. They say, if happiness is inevitable, if nirvana is inevitable, then why prolong the agony? Why not do it the other way? Let's say I have 5,000 lifetimes to live, and I don't know if I can cut them short or not. But somewhere in this process there is nirvana. Do I want to live 5,000 lifetimes without nirvana and cry my eyes out because I'm ignorant and I'm getting hit in my ego constantly and I'm frustrated, and then one day reach nirvana? Or maybe I should do like Buddha and for 6 years work really hard, exclusively, find nirvana, and then the next 5,000 lifetimes, if they are still there, I will be in nirvana. And living 5,000 lifetimes in nirvana is totally different than living without it and then getting it. It's like putting first the horse and then the cart, not the other way around, not putting the cart in front of the horses. So what I'm saying here is that because there exists a process, a spiritual process called evolution of the soul, the great spirits of this planet, they found out that this evolution has to be accelerated. Like you don't want to just wait for 1,000,000 years floating on a raft on a river to the ocean. It's too slow and it's too painful. And therefore, if we know that Buddha did it in 6 years, and great yogis like Yogananda and others, they say that it can be achieved in India, they believe it's about 12 years is the average time for a person to reach a state of samadhi and so on. And Yogananda Paramhamsa says that if you practice 8 hours of yoga per day, it can happen even in 3 years. 3 years. You can't even become prime minister in your country in 3 years if you turn to politics. You can't even make $1 million in most businesses in 3 years if you start doing hardcore business. So it's not even comparatively with whatever is happening in this life, is not even that much. And thus, the great spirits, pragmatically, practically, they have immediately said, wait a second, the spiritual evolution, we want to consume it quickly. We want to polish the diamond quickly. We don't have time to wait that it happens by the tick-tock of nature. Can it be accelerated? And that is what are the methods of spiritual evolution. Originally, you can do yoga because you want your legs to have a nice shape. You can do yoga because you have pain in your back and you want it eliminated. You can do yoga because you want to have better memory for your university exams in your daily life. You can do yoga because you want to see other people's auras and to find out how their energy is moving. But all these are collateral. When the first man on the face of this earth invented something called yoga, yoga was a method to reach Buddhahood quickly. To reach quickly to nirvana. To shorten the time for spiritual evolution. So was Buddhist meditation. So was Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of Karma Yoga given in it. So is the Christian prayer, the prayer of the heart or whatever else. So is the dervish dance of the Sufis. Any spiritual method invented on the face of this earth is a method which is alleged. I say it is alleged because we cannot demonstrate 100% that it's valid, but it is alleged that those methods are increasing your evolution. They are polishing your diamond quickly. How much? For example, Paramahamsa Yogananda, when he teaches his technology of Kriya Yoga, which we also teach in the school here in the metaphysical workshop in June, just to give you an example, there are many other technologies. But I'm giving an example because Yogananda, being a university man, he just wanted to make it as crystal clear and as engineeringly clear as possible. So he gave some very good examples. Paramahamsa Yogananda simply said, every breath that you take, it's like the sun going through the 12 astrological signs. So if you breathe in a certain way, consciously with mantras, in the moment when you accompany this breathing, is as if you were on planet Earth and went around the sun one full circle in a breathing. There's 4 seconds for a breath. There are 15 breaths per minute averagely, which means if you would be doing the conscious breathing way, it's a little bit like Anapana in Vipassana, but it's more complex. We consider it in Tantra to be that it's a more elaborate technique. So if you do that, in 1 minute, you get as much evolution as if you'd be sitting on a raft for 15 years. In every 4 seconds, you polish the diamond as much as it would be in 1 year of passive living. In 1 year, you get it for 15. In 1 minute or something, you are getting it for 15 years of passive life. Then if you will continue calculating like this and see in how many minutes of practice would I get it if I would, for 1,000,000 years, for example. If you continue that ratio, it's very simple. It's simple arithmetics. You will see that it equivalents with about 3 to 12 years of yoga practice, depending on how many hours you are willing to practice per day. Therefore, this is what I'm telling about. Every method of yoga and others is a method which claims that they speed you up. Instead of you being on a raft, on the Nile, now you are taking a speedboat down the Nile. That's yoga. Yoga is a speedboat. That's why we do Padahastasana. That's why we stand on our heads. That's why we do Laya Yoga. That's why we do Pranayama. Because every spiritual practice which you do is a way of accelerating your evolution. That is very important to understand. That is the need of spiritual paths. If there would be no spiritual paths, everybody on the face of this earth would be with a raft on the river, and everybody would be moving at the same rate. But some men and some women in the history of this planet, and nowadays, and in the future, without any doubt, they become restless at some point. They simply say, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait another 500,000 years. And then they say, who can teach me a method to move quickly, to move faster? That's what yoga is. That's what the Buddhist religion is. That's what the Christian prayer is. Of course, religions are something which is given to millions of people, and that's why they are watered down. And esoteric paths like yoga, tantra, and other esoteric paths which exist on the face of this earth, they are for a limited number of people who can accelerate very, very much. That's why even the spiritual methods are not the same. And then some spiritual methods are like a tree. When a tree becomes too old, it cannot make flowers and fruits anymore. That means it's burned out, it's exhausted, it's worn out. And that's why people look, let's see how many Christian saints have appeared in the last 50 years or 100 years of Christianity. Real saints. How many Buddhist nirvana people have there appeared in Tibetan Buddhism, in Theravada Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism in the last 100 years? Because people want to see if the tree is still alive, if the tree produces still fruits. The tree of yoga has been producing fruits till the 20th century. We know of the great yogis of the 20th century, a Yogananda, a Shivananda, a mother, the mother of Sri Aurobindo Ashram, a Mahananda Mai, men and women who made it. So we know that the tree of yoga is alive. And we know that yoga is a real fast boat. It's one of the fastest boats because it's an esoteric method. This is how we reach, in understanding in this school, this is how we reach to the so-called methods of spiritual development. That's what they are. And tonight, to go further, to continue in the line of this, I want to tell you a few words about Tantric Yoga, which is the essence of what we do here in Agama. Because in Agama, as I said, there are probably 20, 30, 200 spiritual methods on the face of this earth. Don't believe that there are so many. When we do the metaphysical workshop, we even take them one by one and explore each and every one of them, and we show you what's the strong side and the weak side according to metaphysics. But there are not so many. Many people think that because now in the New Age subculture, people are doing 1,001 crazy things, therefore, there are a million spiritual ways that you can do. It's false. It's just a superficial understanding. The actual spiritual ways, there are about 5 to 10 bona fide major and minor religions, and there are about 5 to 10 esoteric paths. There are about 20, 30, 40, with great indulgence, maybe 50 spiritual paths that can take you quickly to nirvana. Not more. There are not a million. That's just a superstition of this Vadistanistic, superficial, New Age way of thinking. So, here in Agama, we are following the tenets most of the time, because of course we are borrowing everything which works in our own frame of work, but we are following the tenets of Tantric Yoga. Yoga, and not only yoga, there are approximately 4 types of yoga: the classical yoga, the Vedantic yoga, the Kashmirian yoga, the Tantric yoga, the Kundalini, Hatha yoga, and so on. And therefore, the first thing which I need to give to you to understand, and I'm trying to do this in the beginning of each season so that people have a fresh presentation of that, so they know where they stand, where they are, is this. We agreed, at least theoretically, at the level of lecturing, we agreed on the fact that there exist methods for accelerating the spiritual evolution. Or at least, that's what the yogis and the Sufis and the Tantrics and the Buddhists, and that's what they believe. If they are wrong, it means that Milarepa worked like an idiot for 30 or 40 years, and actually he didn't get anything out of it. He could as well have sat in a restaurant or in a pub and had fun, and he didn't need to live in a cave and do meditation. So spiritual people believe that their spiritual activity will get them ahead, will make them speed forward a lot. And again, it cannot be demonstrated to people who are skeptical or materialistic. Materialistic people don't believe in God. They don't believe in an eternal spirit. Materialistic people even contest the fact that there is prana, or life force. They say that prana is a figment of some people's imagination, and it's not real. Never in my lectures, in my satsangs, will I be able to convince you scientifically. Because if there would be a scientific demonstration for these things, it would have been applied long time ago. I can use persuasion, I can use poetry, I can use common sense, I can use other arguments, but ultimately I cannot demonstrate it scientifically. The only way to verify me if there is prana is for you to do pranayama and to project it on a mango or on a little plant and see what's going to happen. Like, your own experiment can demonstrate if there exists prana, and then of course if there exists an immortal essence of your being, and if you can make it visible, if you can develop it in the meaning, if you can evolve so that you shine it through. That's why I'm not trying to demonstrate, I'm simply telling you authoritatively what the giants of metaphysics have said for the last 4,000 years. And if you choose to be with them, on the same page with them, or not, that's entirely up to you. I also admire the attitude of those of you who take it easily and gradually and say, Swami, don't ask me to believe in God just because Jesus believed in God and he believed he was God. I still don't have that experience. So let me first discover if I have prana. When I have prana, let me discover the astral body. When I have the astral body, let me discover that I can live outside of my body in astral projection, and therefore that I am not my body. And therefore some people want to grow up gradually, with experiment, step by step. That experiment you won't be able to go on television and demonstrate it, but at least it will be valid for you. You will know that for you it is true. And thus, I want to exert common sense and to tell to you this thing with the spiritual paths, it's of course in the context where you care about your own spirituality and where you care about what you want to do and all the things which I have said. So among the many spiritual paths, even yoga has sub-lineages, like the yoga of Patanjali, the classical yoga, which is almost extinct in a way, and others and others. Here in Agama, when you come to the first level and we teach you about the 7 chakras, and then we make you do Padahastasana and Tadasana and things like this, you are following a path of Tantric yoga. Like we are going to take 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 6 months, whatever it takes to make you feel the prana. After that, we are going to take a time to make you feel the chakras. After that, we are going to make you feel your astral body, and then the mental body, and then work with mantras, and then visualize, and this and that. So slowly, slowly, that's what Agama is. That's why there are so many levels in Agama, and people take 6, 7, 8, 10 years to go through the Agama curriculum, because basically we have to teach you a lot, and it's not only teaching you theoretically, because I could write a book as thick as that and sell it to you. But we have to teach it because you have to do it. You have to do asanas until you start feeling that something is flowing through your legs and arms, and then you realize that could be the prana. Let me do another 6 weeks of yoga practice until I get more confident that that is actually the prana. So nothing can replace practice, the direct experience. So a yoga school in this case is a place where you come and you do your practice. And you do and do and do and do and do and do until you start experiencing things. And it's not only theory from a book. It's something which you can directly experience. So, therefore, here you are following the tenets of the Tantric Yoga. And I need to clarify this term. It is my goal that tonight, until the end of this satsang, I'll make clear for you what is this Tantric Yoga. And it is my purpose that in the next satsang, concluding this series of 3 satsangs, I told you first what the metaphysical principles are. I'm telling you now what Tantric Yoga is. And next week, if everything goes okay, I'll tell you what Agama Yoga specifically does. What do we do as a form, as a school in this? But now I'm describing the bigger environment of Tantric Yoga. Of course, the word Tantric puts me in a very difficult position, because the word Tantra originally means warp, and it contains the concept, like the warp on a loom. It means a network of threads crisscrossing the universe, and it's basically the concept that between you and the sun, there exists an invisible thread. Between your Manipura chakra, between your belly button and the sun, there is a thread. Not a thread made of material matter, but a sort of a causal connection, an invisible thread, a thread of energy and information. And between you and the pole star, there is a thread. And between you and the earth, there is a thread. And between you and the moon, there is a thread. And between you and the whole vegetal life on this planet, there is a thread. And between you and the totem of the bears, the big bear, the collective soul of all the bears that are still alive on the face of this earth, there is a thread. That you are connected with everything, and everything is connected with everything. This concept of a holographic, holistic universe is called Tantra. And that simply means that everything is weaved. There is, like on a fabric, you take a piece of cloth, but you don't realize that before this piece of cloth became cotton, it is weaved on a warp. On the loom, before there was a warp made of strings. And then cotton got weaved on those. And now you see the cotton, but you don't see the warp, which is still here in this piece of cloth. In the same way, we see the universe, but we don't see the warp, which is the basis of the universe. That's what Tantra really means. Most people, when I say Tantric yoga, it means yoga with sex. That's just the modern people's obsession and the human obsession in general with sex. The word Tantra does not refer directly to sex. There is a 5 or 10% implication in Tantric yoga because they discovered that sex is the biggest force of nature in animals, in mammals, and therefore you have to use it, you have to understand it. And that's why in Tantric yoga there is a big chapter, a large chapter about sex and how to use it. But many people have put again the cart in front of the horses, like, oh, Tantric yoga is that thing about sex. No, it's about a million other things, but people see sex before everything. So that's why when we say we are a school of Tantric yoga, we are talking about the holistic vision, this interconnectedness. Tantric yoga is a yoga which starts from the idea that everything is connected to everything, and you can use this. You can, by understanding this, you can accelerate your evolution. Even Agama, the name Agama, the 64 classical Agamas, could be called the 64 classical Tantras. The Agamic tradition of India could be, by stretching the meaning a little bit, be called the Tantric tradition of India. So when I say Agama yoga, it's like I'm saying Tantra yoga. If I would have called this school Tantra yoga, everybody would have thought that we are dealing with sex from one end to the other, which we are not. That's why one of my gurus, Shankar Baba, when he advised him, I asked him, how do you want me to call this thing which I'm going to teach to people? And he thought about it, and I said, it's Tantric yoga. But he said, yeah, but the name Tantra is pretty much compromised and so on. So he said, use Agama. Call it Agama yoga. This is how the name of this school came to be, because of the reference to Tantra. So you are fully into Tantric yoga, but remember, the Tantric tradition is based on 64 fundamental texts called Tantras or Agamas, and this is the Tantric tradition, and this is the Hindu Tantric tradition, and there exists a parallel Tibetan Tantric tradition. There are two Tantric traditions, and that's why this Tantric yoga is something else than the classical yoga of Patanjali. It's something else than the Vedantic yoga. It's not based on the Vedantic philosophy. It's a thing of its own. And it's very important that you understand it, because maybe you will not like some of the conclusions. Because if you have different methods, and if you have a different philosophy, then from that there results a different lifestyle. If any one of you wants to accelerate your evolution by doing Theravada Buddhism, and you go to our friends right there in the monastery and become a monk for the next 15 years, your lifestyle 100 meters from here and the lifestyle of the people who search for the same thing as you, but through another instrument here, 100 meters away, will be very different. You will eat different things, you will sleep at different hours, you will have different attitudes towards your body and sex and other issues of life. And that's why it's very important from the very beginning to understand what the methods are, to understand what follows from it, and how the next 20 years of your life are going to look. Because if you go in a Christian monastery and take the vows, and you are serious about it, then you know where you will be 20 years from now. It's enough just to look at any monk or nun that has been in a monastery for the last 20 or 25 years, and then you'll see what your future is like. Therefore, this initiative of mine to talk to you about Tantric yoga is very important, because it shows you, first of all, if your place is here or not. Maybe tonight you discover that you would like to be a Buddhist monk or nun, which is not bad. I don't have absolutely any jealousy on you if you are choosing another spiritual path. It is true that I'm sometimes dismayed that people get cheated by New Age imposters and they take paths which are not paths. So people are just going to waste their time and the precious lifetime running in circles and getting lost in the outer darkness. But I cannot claim that a method like the Theravada Buddhism does not work. I may not be practicing it myself because that's not the method which my karma and my dharma and my teachers gave to me, but I agree that there are other parallel methods of evolution, and people should always choose those methods which fit with their temperament. So therefore, there are people who constantly want to have fun. That's the temperament number 7 in the system of temperaments of the Enneagram. There is a way of classifying the human being in 9 temperaments, and one of them, the number 7, it's the fun-loving one. And in the same system, there is one which is self-punishing and tough on themselves. If you want to be tough on yourself for the next 40 years, you will choose a certain path in evolution. If you want to have fun every day, you will choose another path in evolution. That's why the same path does not fit for everybody, absolutely. And that's why you need to know what Tantric Yoga is all about. So it can seem a small difference what makes the Tantric Yoga. I remember that Jonathan Swift in his Gulliver's Travels, he was making fun of the society, I think it was in Lilliput, in the midgets, in the dwarf world, where people, there existed only 2 political parties, and I think he made allusion to 2 British political parties. And those political parties were coming from the fact that if you should break an egg, a boiled egg, when you make a boiled egg, if you should break it open at the narrow end or at the wide end of the egg. By which Jonathan Swift was making a political irony that either Tories or Conservatories or whatever party it was, they are all the same. It's all just Anglo-Saxon politicians, and the difference is this big, and they pretend, the Democrats and the Republicans in America and so on, that they are as different as heaven and earth, while other people write ironic books about America, which says the one-party state, that the Democrats and the Republicans, they are all Freemasons in the same lodges, they drink in the same restaurants, they have the same lobbies, and they pretend that there are 2 competing parties, while the whole country is a one-party system after all, because nobody would, for example, dare to do something really preposterous like this or that. They are all politically correct, and what is the third major party, which is the party of the politically incorrect people, like something, no, that doesn't exist. So coming back to our story, it's the same with this in yoga. Sometimes the differences can sound very small in the beginning, but as they go in daily life and in your practice, they become wildly and widely different, and that's why you need to understand the angle of Tantric Yoga. Also, because Tantric Yoga represents less than 5% of the spirituality of the world today, which means Tantric Yoga is very small. This is a minority path which we follow here. It's not the majority spiritual path. We are not on one of the main trends. This is a small path, and this path is trodden by a relatively small number of brave men and women. There are many more men in Christian monasteries, and there are many more women in Christian monasteries on the face of this earth than Tantric Yogis. Tantric Yogis are very few, and perhaps you'll also understand why that is the case. So to understand what is Tantric Yoga, we have to look at the metaphysical angle, and that's why I drew that classical picture there, because in metaphysics, one thing is clear. We can talk metaphysically about the oneness, and oneness is not something which you can understand, because in that oneness, you and Adolf Hitler are one. Even if you are a Jew, you and Adolf Hitler are one. And that's not what the brain can understand. The brain revolts to that, because the brain is made of 2 hemispheres, which are practicing electricity plus and minus, yin and yang, and the whole universe is not built on 1. The whole universe is built on 2. The movement is not possible when there is 1, because 1 is absolute and not relative. The one has to split itself in two, the yin and the yang, the Shiva and the Shakti, and those two are starting playing ping pong with each other. When you have yin and yang in Chinese Taoism, then you have trigrams, then you have hexagrams, and then you have I Ching, the book of change. The book of everything comes from yin and yang playing with each other in 64 hexagrams, and the whole universe results from that. If you don't have yin and yang, it's like a battery without plus and minus. You can have electricity only when there is plus and minus. Therefore, everything depends on first two. And that's why the one divides in two. This thing, 1 and 2, they are like a triangle. The top of the triangle is the one, and the bottom corners of the triangles are Shiva and Shakti, the two, the yang and the yin of the universe. This is how the whole metaphysics starts. So everybody in metaphysics, exception made of perhaps the Marxist, ultra-materialistic philosophers, but everybody in philosophy and in metaphysics in this world will agree with this, that we can divide reality. This is the result of meditation, of thousands and thousands of years of meditation, that everything in this universe, when you boil it down to the essence, is made of two things. At the end of everything, there are two things. Those two things are represented by us in Agama by that egg-shaped, which the Hindus have called Prakriti, or Mother Nature, which is the equivalent of matter. And that black thing on top of it, we put it on top of it because in the human body it's related to Sahasrara, and it's placed right, therefore, on top of the body. And that thing which is called Purusha, and which would be, therefore, the equivalent of spirit. Purusha and Prakriti, in Europe, they would mean spirit and matter. The fact that the universe is spirit and matter, exception made of some obtuse, narrow-minded, materialistic philosophers, everybody agrees. The Taoists say that it's yang and yin, or they say it's the non-manifestation and the manifestation. The Buddhists say that it's nirvana and samsara. It's the Buddha nature or the illusory transient nature. It's non-manifestation or manifestation. Vedanta in India says it is Brahman, the absolute nature, or Maya, the illusion. The Christian Gnostics, the early Christianity, says it's the phenomenal world and it's the noumenal world. Phenomenal, phenomenal, the externalization of noumenal. Nous in ancient Greek, it meant spirit, mind, intellect. So it's the word of the spirit and the word which is emanated by the spirit, which is Prakriti. It's like the visible part of the iceberg and the invisible part of the iceberg. The visible part of God, which would mean the body of God, which is the universe or nature, the planets, the galaxies, and the invisible part of God, which is much bigger. It's like the invisible part of an iceberg, but because you don't see it, you don't know it exists. And that part is the spirit, is the transcendental part, is the ocean of spirit on which this universe or universes in which we live float like foam on the surface of a water. That endless water is the spirit, is Purusha. And then we see something on the water and we think that's reality. That's not reality, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's a bit of foam on the surface of the water, and that's the material universe and the energetical universe. So I will not insist, because that idea is pretty simple. Everybody in metaphysics understands, yeah, Swami is kind of right. Most meditators, and this they spoke about a reality which is spirit, and spirit has no space, no time, no distance, no causality, no authorship. Spirit is absolute. It's indestructible, it lasts forever, it's immutable, it never changes into anything else because it has no time, therefore it has no transformation. Spirit is perfection, beyond space and time. And therefore it's absolute, infinite, immutable, eternal. And then there is a visible part of the universe, which is called Prakriti or Mother Nature. And this is exactly like the Greek philosopher who said that this world is a world of change, change, change. Like if there is one eternal thing in this world, it's change. The atoms are moving like crazy all the time, and this world changes. Like the Greek philosopher who said Panta Rei. everything flows. There is not 2 times the same water under a bridge. The whole universe is like a flowing river which never comes back. It will never repeat the same circumstances. It's always a world of change, change, change. But behind this change, there exists a witness of the universe which never changes. So there are 2 natures. It's like the eye of the cyclone and the cyclone itself. In the eye of the cyclone, you have Purusha, spirit, Shiva, called in Tantra, that is the silent witness of the universe, the invisible part of the iceberg. And then around is the storm, the tornado, the cyclone, which is Shakti, the nature, Mother Nature, that moves, 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 boils, 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 transforms, transforms, transforms. Suns are colliding into each other. Galaxies are clashing into each other. Stars erupt and become supernovas. Stars are collapsing and disappearing as black holes. It's an endless process of churning and evolution, and this process is the visible part, and this is determined by space, time, but in its totality, it is also the other half of the reality. So everybody agrees to the existence of this, where the differences, if you are going to break the egg at the narrow end or at the wide end, where the difference between tantrics and non-tantrics is in the supposed relationship between those 2. How do they relate to each other? 95% of the spirituality of this earth tells you that those 2 are complementary and exclusive, like they exclude each other. It's like water and oil. If you pour water, it moves the oil up. They don't mix. They don't want to meet. And therefore, spirit and matter appear in Christianity, in classical Buddhism, in old Hinduism, for the Jewish prophets, for the Sufi mystics, you name it. For most spiritual people of this world, spirit and matter appear as enemies, which means if you are more and more spiritual, you will start hating the matter and everything it stands for. And if you are in love with matter, you are going to become a blind, non-spiritual person. Either you are like Ramakrishna, thin and floating 10 centimeters above the ground and not caring about what you eat and what you put on, and you are just going to be really spiritual, or you become like an animal interested only in your food and sleep, and then you are never going to meditate about God or anything because you are a dull, narrow-minded, flat-minded animal. This is the classical image that we all carry in our subconscious mind. It has been repeated by so many spiritual people, and I'm not even making like this spiritual people. They were spiritual, but they were not tantric. So it's repeated by so many non-tantric spiritual people that it has invaded the collective subconscious mind. Almost everybody spontaneously says, yeah, that kind of sounds right. And when I look at the life of Francis of Assisi, or Teresa of Avila, or Ma Ananda Mai, or Ramakrishna, or Milarepa, or whatever other Buddhist woman I would choose, because I try to choose a man and a woman from each one of these religious environments, then it seems to be so. It seems to be like, yeah, that's how those people lived. That's what I like about them. That's what I admire about the spiritual people. That they are not materialistic, that they are not in matter, so it seems to be true. This vision basically transforms matter. I'll make it very short. It transforms matter into the devil. For example, Paramahamsa Yogananda says the concept of Maya from Vedanta, that Maya is a force which hypnotizes you, and you are in the matrix. You think you are in Kopangan, but actually some robots coupled you to a computer, like in the Matrix, and you are not in Kopangan. You just imagine you are in Kopangan, and there is no Kopangan, and that's not reality. That's the concept of Maya. Maya simply says you identify the world by your 5 senses. What you see, what you touch, what you eat, what you smell and taste. That's how you think you are in Kopangan. because you see that you are in Phangan. What if your sight is falsified and the computer puts in your mind the image that you are in Phangan? You are not in Phangan. This is called in Hinduism Maya. It means illusion. It means everything is a dream. You are hypnotized. And why? Because you can rely only on your five senses. And if your five senses are just electricity. And if this electricity is falsified, then what you consider to be reality is a false signal, and your brain is duped by something false. Not to mention that your brain itself could be duped from the beginning, not only the five senses. So what I'm trying to say here is this. Hinduism, and especially Vedanta, says you are immortal spirit, you are Brahman, so say, I am that, and then you have to find out that you are that. And you go around, laying importance on the fact that, look, I'm wearing Nike shoes, or I'm wearing Gucci clothes or something. What's the importance of that? Nothing. It's just a dream in a dream. It doesn't matter. You could stay naked like the Babas in the jungle and do meditation and reach nirvana, reach Brahman. So Vedanta says Brahman is the real thing and you should all find it now. And all this thing that you think you are going to take an airplane and go to Las Vegas is Fata Morgana, it's just Maya. It's just a big, big dream, and you are like a moth around the lamp. You are so hypnotized by the lamp that you will end by flying in the lamp and burning your wings and die. This is what Maya does. For thousands of lifetimes, you just take illusion for reality, and you just want to have, like, if I will have many children, I will be happy. Then you have many children, and you are unhappy. You burned your wings, one more life, You constantly get hypnotized by some illusion that if you have money, you are happy, that if you have children, you are happy, that if you have a career, you are happy and safe, and all that. And spirituality shows none of those is true. And that's why the idea which appears in the non-tantric spirituality is that spirit is against matter, and matter rises against spirit. And that's why those two are incompatible with each other, and they are at a state of war with each other. So you have been materialistic for 5,000 lifetimes. Now you came to Agama. I want to see who of you can stand up and give me the next 50 years of your life for meditation and yoga. Like if you have lived for 500,000 years in non-spirituality, who can give 50 years for spirituality right now in this life? That's the idea of this Vedantic duality, that you enough materialism, time for some spiritual practice. Groundhog Day and Groundhog Day and Groundhog Day and Groundhog Day, until at some point you get fed up with the Groundhog Day and you say enough is enough. So that's normal spirituality, that I want to reach salvation. Salvation from what? From the world. Even Jesus says, do not be afraid because I have vanquished the world. Like the world is like a dragon, and I smashed it down and put my foot on its neck. I have vanquished the world. The world is a snake. The world is the enemy. You need to put your foot on its neck. You need to vanquish the world. That's what even Jesus implies. It's not a full implication, but there is an implication into it in that. And therefore, I want to reach salvation. I want to reach perfection. I want to reach the kingdom of heaven. I want to reach liberation. I want to reach nirvana. I want to reach enlightenment. I want to reach... This is the spiritual thing that you have to run away from something, which is the enemy, and which you have indulged for too long time, and now it's time to take a revenge and to compensate for all those years of ignorance and forgetfulness. Does it work? Yes. I have thought in this way for many years in my life, in the beginning of my spiritual practices, and it is a psychology which works very well. Ramakrishna, Shivananda, Milarepa, you name it, all of them speak in this terminology. And this terminology is very inciting because it creates a battlefield. Light and darkness. Are you a Jedi or are you with the dark side of the force? You know, it's like, it's as simple as that. It's the eternal conflict between darkness and light. Are you with the devil or are you with God? Are you with the good guys? No? What do you choose? You choose eternal life or you choose hell. That is the dichotomy which exists in all religions. If you do not reach nirvana, it means you are still lost in samsara. Yeah, maybe you are very close to nirvana and it will take you another 3 lifetimes to reach it. But technically speaking, as long as you haven't reached nirvana, you didn't find the door, the exit door. You are still locked and running in circles in samsara. So the idea is very simple in non-tantric spirituality because it creates a division, and that division is put in like a seesaw. One is up, the other one is down. They cannot go together, up or together down. And that's why in the non-tantric spirituality, you have some implications, because everything which is on the side of prakriti, of nature, is shunned. For example, when you do meditation, your body may get tired. You don't care. You don't give any attention to the tiredness of your body. The tiredness of your body is Maya or samsara, which is trying to keep you prisoner in Maya or samsara. So the real spiritual hero says, even when my back is hurting, I do meditation. I don't stop. Even if I'm tired, I do my spiritual practice. Like nature is my obstacle. That's why people in spirituality, very often they go against nature. I don't eat. I'm fasting. I don't sleep. I'm doing vigils. I am refraining from sex. I become celibate. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and most of it is against the nature. You will not find any non-tantric spirituality which goes along with the body and its needs. The body is an animal piece of flesh, and its needs are going to take you to hell because they are materialistic and there is no spirituality in that. And therefore you cannot obey to the body. That's why 95% of the world's spirituality is against the world. It is against the body. It is against pleasure. It's against relaxation and fun, because all these are traps of Maya. The devil is luring you to diminish your spiritual practice with too much comfort, with too much sleep, with too much sex, with too much food, with this and that. It's all against it. That's the non-tantric mentality. To reach spirit, you have to run away from the matter. I could continue this a lot. There are so many examples which can be given, and I'm sure you know most of them, but I'm sure you got the point. Well, the tantric tradition is the one, and probably the one which does it most. There are 2-3 other traditions which come close to it, to this holistic vision. But the tantric mentality is the full-on one which turns the tables on this, because it says it is absurd to presume that half of God is divine, absolute, meaningful, spirit, and the other half of God, which happens to be Mother Nature, is just an enemy, a poisonous snake that is trying to kill you. Since both of them are created, this is illustrated in Christianity by the eternal question, who created the devil? Because if you say that God created the devil, then God being omnipotent and omniscient, he couldn't have lost the devil out of control. It can't happen in a universe where God is the single ruler, absolute, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. So you cannot say that God created Lucifer or the devil as a nice thing, and then he got some funny ideas in his head and turned against. Didn't God know that he was going to turn against? Then God is ignorant. Then God created something which he can't even control. So it's obvious that if God created the devil, God also knew that the devil will become the devil. And still God did it, which means God condones the devil, accepts, because otherwise God would not have created the devil. It's as simple as that. And of course, that's unacceptable. You cannot say in Christianity that God created the devil in full awareness, in full knowledge of what was going to happen. And if you say that God did not create the devil, it gets to be even worse, because it means there is another source of creation in this universe independent of God, and God is not alone. And there is somebody else or something else, and then God is not absolute, not omnipresent and not omnipotent and all that. So actually both answers are wrong. And the Christian theologians, if you would ever study Christian theology and get to this point, who created the evil? The answer is absolutely flabbergasting. The evil, like the devil, is neither created nor uncreated. Ask no more. Like, shut up, because you caught us red-handed here, and there is no logical answer to this. So it's like, if you try to really use logics, this doesn't work. In the same way, the same question applies in Vedanta. The Kashmirian Shaivas, who are the top monistic tantric philosophers of India, the Kashmirians, Abhinavagupta and his spiritual family, they ask the question, they ask the Vedantins, because the Vedantins of India are the second non-dualistic school of India, and they think they are the first. And the Tantrics of Kashmir, they asked a simple question. They simply asked, tell us if Maya and Brahman, spirit and illusion, are both of them real. Who created Maya and Brahman? And it's the same stupid thing, because you cannot say that a real entity called Brahman created something called Maya just to test you and me, and that Maya which was created is not real. Because a real entity can produce only something real. Only real comes out of real. And therefore, if Maya was created by Brahman, then Maya is real. And if it is real, why treat it as unreal? That's where the Tantric tradition comes in. And the Tantric tradition says, enough with the primitive metaphysics. The primitive metaphysics, they can be very motivating. Like Osho Rajneesh gave a parable like this. He says, this world is samsara or Maya, this yoga hall. You've all been born here, grown up here, live here, have relationships, bang your head against the wall here. Out there is nirvana. I have been out there. I come from out there. And I'm coming and sitting in front of you, and I'm saying, don't be fascinated with this, because this is not all that exists. There exists another world out there which you have never seen, and which is so much vaster, and it's the infinite potentiality is there, and you should just visit it. And some of you will say, really? Swami, are you not pulling our leg? Really? How many hours per day do I have to walk towards the exit to find that exit? But I have some obligations in this yoga hall, and I don't know. And you hesitate. And then Rajneesh says, I can use a dirty trick. I can put a few oily pieces of cloth there and there, set them on fire, and when the fire bursts up and there is a lot of smoke, I can scream, fire, fire, get out of here quickly, you are going to burn here, the roof will set on fire and we'll all burn. And you, like sheep, you are just going to go through that door, burst through that door. And when you will be out, I'm going to say, haha, there was no danger, but I got you out. So basically Rajneesh, in his provocative style, he said, I can use white lies. And the white lies will make you move your asses, and the job will be done, and you will not like me because I didn't tell you the whole truth, but it will work. It has effect. The same thing is about the non-tantric things. It's white lies. They create this image that there is a big bad wolf ready to bite your buttocks, and you have to run. Run, run, run towards God, because the devil is with a fork behind you and is going to spike you any moment. And samsara is the big bad wolf, and you are going to be in agony forever and ever. And meditate, pray, save yourself, reach salvation now in this life. There is not a million lifetimes. There is no reincarnation. There's one lifetime. If you don't do it now, you will never do it. It's now or never. Do it, do it, do it, do it. All these are white lies. The tantric text Vijnana Bhairava even says all these things which are being said about God or the divine nature, they are like little candies which a mother gives to her child to take bitter medicine. Like when the medicine is bitter, the mother is cheating the child by telling, if you take this, I'll give you 2 candies with chocolate. And the kid takes the medicine because he wants the candy. So you always say, if you will go to the kingdom of God, God is going to pet you on your head. It might not be true, but it's so convincing for you. These are theological white lies by which people are being lured towards spirituality. Like, come on, spirituality is really nice and all that. While on the other hand, it might not be. Those of you who saw The Matrix, the movie, you remember that when Neo gave that pill to, when Neo got that pill from Morpheus, Morpheus told him he withdrew it in the last minute. It was a green pill which he chose to see the truth. And he said, mind you, I'm not even telling you it's going to be nice, but I can promise it's going to be the truth. So the truth might not be pleasant. What he discovered afterwards was, so the spiritual reality, I'm not even telling you that it's pleasant, because it's beyond pleasant and unpleasant. It doesn't refer to pleasantry or unpleasantry. That's why you are not doing spirituality because you want to go in a cozy place. But the Christian mystics have said it's paradise. It's the kingdom of heaven. It's eternal happiness, and the angels are singing, and the tantric master will tell you bullshit. Those are just white lies. Because we are not luring you with pleasures. Come to Daddy, come to God. It's going to be so pleasant. It's not. But I know that if you reach the kingdom of heaven, you'll be more happy than if you don't. So it's worth it to tell the lie, because it's worth it to attract the people, exactly like you convince a child to take medicine. You don't have to reason with the child like with an adult. You say, come on, endure for 5 minutes, then I'm going to give you chocolate. No? And the child does it. So therefore, the non-tantric spirituality uses this false conflict. I have been in this false conflict. First time when I learned about spirituality, at least 2-3 years of my spiritual practice, I read Vedantic authors like Shivananda, Ramakrishna, and the likes of them. And it motivated me terribly. It motivated me formidably. Like, it's a good instrument. And I don't want to take that from you. That's why even in Agama, while you are doing the first few years of yoga, we don't talk too much in the meaning of the monistic tantric tradition of Kashmir and things like that, because people don't understand. People understand much better this competitive thing, that if you die and you are not yet enlightened, your bardo is going to be a bitter experience. So you better reach samadhi, because when you die, if you reach samadhi, it's a totally different death you are going to experience than the death of an ignorant person who is afraid of death and polluted by all sorts of worries and cares and things like this. So therefore, the tantric tradition turns the tables by simply saying Maya or Brahman, Samsara or Nirvana. It's all of it God. It's just that God has divided itself in two. And one of these is spirit and the other one of them is matter. But matter, Prakriti, nature, is as holy and as real and as divine as spirit, because both of them are like 2 halves of the same apple. And just because you see one half and you don't see the other, now you say this one is bad and this one would be really good. It's not true. And that's why Tantra says Prakriti or nature in our tradition is called Shakti. And Shakti is not Maya or a boogeyman. Shakti is the mother of the universe, the lover of Shiva, your cosmic mother, the reality, the life of this universe, the energy of this universe. And Shakti is Ananda, the ecstasy, as the Gnostic calls her, Sophia, or the breath of God, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost of God. And therefore, the nature or energy is perfectly okay and perfectly divine. It's true, she has the big task of fostering you. of growing you, of evolving you. And in this evolving, you bump your head against the walls of your nest, and you think it's bad. But it isn't. It's just a misunderstanding because you don't see it for what it is. And that's why the tantric tradition has turned the tables completely. And he said, instead of being afraid of the world, instead of being afraid of samsara, instead of being afraid of your body, that your body is the animal that is the enemy of your spirit, make friends with it. Try to find the spirit with it, through it. For example, the body is a mandala, is a relative thing. But if your life force moves to this end of your body in Sahasrara, you're going to experience a state of samadhi. So the body is actually an instrument. Take it like a sand clock, like an hourglass, and turn it like this, and do the headstand. And all the energy will flow in your crown chakra, and you will reach enlightenment. So the body is an instrument for reaching enlightenment. You have the chakras associated with your body. There's nothing wrong with your body, with the chakras, with the nadis, and everything. They are an instrument. Of course, most people are ignorant, and they don't use this instrument. They neglect this instrument. They misuse this instrument. They keep it in a state of unawareness. But if you would take this instrument, which is a wonderful conscious mandala, and use it, this instrument will give you enlightenment. Because even the ones which are not related to the body, the spiritualists which are not related with the body, they say, oh, you should do meditation by putting your legs in the lotus pose or something. Why? Why would my legs determine if I'm going to get enlightened or not? How real is my body? No? But look that the body is used. You should do prostrations. You should fall on your knees and pray to God. Why on my knees? Why not on my belly? Even the people who pretend that they are non-tantric, to a certain extent they are, because everybody has to acknowledge that there is a meaning. If my body has not a meaning, then why can I not go to hookers every day and ejaculate in their mouth every night? And then, why will that ruin my spiritual practice in any way, if the body is an illusion and a lie? But everybody in spirituality says, don't ejaculate. Don't do this. Why? The body is supposed to be an illusion and to be completely insignificant from the spiritual standpoint. But it is. So if I use my body right, I'm going somewhere. And if I'm using my body wrong, I'm shooting myself in the foot, spiritually speaking. Which shows automatically that the body makes sense. It's something which is meaningful. It's not just a maya, just a dream which has no relevance. It has a relevance. Proof is that we use it in the spiritual practice and we discipline it in various ways. That's why I'm saying this is where the tantric tradition comes very strongly. And this means that the tantric tradition is doing exactly what the other ones are not doing. The tantric tradition is using a different lifestyle, a different philosophy. It has different goals. It uses different methods. Like Vedantic institutions of India, like the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Institute of India, Mission of India, they don't teach Hatha Yoga. They even say, black on white, that Hatha Yoga can be detrimental to your spiritual development. One reason is that people today do Hatha Yoga like a gymnastics, and if you are becoming one of these monkey yogis, then you are an idiot and you lost yourself in the labyrinth completely anyway. And the second is that if you do Hatha Yoga even the right way, your body is healthy, strong, full of vitality. Your higher chakras, but also your lower chakras are activated. Then you want to sleep, you want to eat, you want to have sex, you want this, you want that. We can't have that. We want you to be like an angel floating 10 centimeters above the ground, half dematerialized, like on the fringe of disappearing from this world. Then you don't want to do Hatha Yoga. So there are people who even say Hatha Yoga is detrimental, while Tantric Yoga says Hatha Yoga is your best friend. Hatha Yoga, you should do it Because when the energy is flowing, when you purify your nadis, when you do Uddiyana Bandha and lift the energy up, when you stand on your head and focus it in the crown chakra and so on, that's going to bring you success. Step by step, you are getting closer and closer to something very big. So, most of the non-tantric yogas are not body-oriented, and Hatha Yoga, which is a tantric yoga is body-oriented. Sometimes in India, I just want to warn you about this, then in India and in a few places, you find some strange hybrids, because many Indian gurus are unclear about these things, and they ride on 2 horses. I met a guy coming from a Vedantic school of India. He told me he was passionate of Vedanta, and he was going to Germany to teach Hatha Yoga. And I said, if you are a true Vedantic, you don't do Hatha Yoga. How come that you... And he said, I have to put some bread and butter on my table. Like, inside my heart, I'm Vedantic, but for the stupid Phangangs, I'm going to teach them Hatha Yoga because they like monkey gymnastics, and that will give me money. Like, yoga has become aware. It's not part of a thinking system, like it's a system for those people. So that's why, remember, the first thing is that Tantric Yoga has a different attitude to the body. Tantric Yoga says God is here, in every cell of your body, in your crown chakra, in every atom, you can find the divine nature. Your body is an excellent instrument, but you have to practice awareness, you have to feel it, you have to move the energies, and then your body becomes your best friend. When you don't know what to do, you just do your Shirshasana. When you don't know what to do, you just do your Uddiyana Bandha. Like, your body is the last line of defense, you know. It's the thing which you can move. It's the thing which you can influence. When you say, I'm depressed and I don't know how to come out of my depression. Headstand, headstand, headstand. You know, you get out of the depression. Because at least if you tell me stories, Swami, I can't come out. Did you do half an hour of headstand before you talk to me? You know, it's like you're coming and bullshitting me, because we both know that you could do something. You could do 100 Uddiyana Bandhas, and I promise your depression will disappear after 100 Uddiyana Bandhas, you know? No, but you are bullshitting me because you are lazy. And you want to be confused. Because if not, the body is your best friend. When you don't know how to do anything and say, I'm lost, I'm confused, there is still Uddiyana Bandha. Uddiyana Bandha still exists, and you can do it. No? So your body is your best friend because it's concrete, material. You can do things with your body. This body-oriented spirituality is typically tantric. Tantra likes the energy. Like in many religions, people are fasting, eating 1 grain of rice per day, getting thin. Look at some of the Buddhist monks and so on. They are so out of this world, you know. Like, and when you eat a lot of good energy, high protein, good fats, good carbs, and so on, you are like going berserk, you know. You're like, I have a rush, you know. I have a sugar rush, the carb rush, and so on. I want to have sex, or I want to be physically active, to do some stupid jokes with my friends, to laugh loud, to do things like... In most religions, that's not okay. If you are going in a Buddhist monastery or in a Christian monastery, you are supposed to be suppressed, silent. Keep your eyes down. Don't look in other people's eyes. Behave. Move slowly. Don't make jerky movements. Know this. So what am I going to do if I'm like a puppy inside? I feel like I'm exploding with energy and I want to run in circles for 100 meters or something. You can't do that. That means too much energy is not welcome. Vital energy. While we in yoga, if any one of you has a splendid vitality, I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy to see that you have a great energy and you want to do physical action, or because I can guide that physical action. I say, if you have so much physical energy, why don't you have tantric sex for 4 hours? Then after 4 hours of sex, you will be like, I think it's enough for today. No, so I can spend your energy in a useful way. No, like if you have too much energy to burn, I'm not afraid of your energy. I know where to use it, where to put it. So we like energy. The more energy you have, the more spiritual practice you are going to do. It's good. The third level is the astral body, is the level of emotions. Most religions tell you to suppress your emotions. Any emotion is an illusion, and in Buddhism you just name it. You look at yourself and you say, I'm angry. And then you say, anger, anger, and naming it, naming it, naming it. Anger. This is anger. This is anger. Yeah, I observe anger. I see anger. And then after a while, you don't care about it because you separate it. But you are not living it out. You are not seething with anger. You are not boiling. You killed it. You stay away from it. You take it out of your system. Can the emotions be used? I mentioned the negative emotion, one of the really dangerous and poisonous ones. Can emotions be used? Yes. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, emotions are like powerful horses. If you have powerful horses and you harness them, you tame them, you educate them, then your chariot is going to be the fastest chariot in the universe. If those horses are going one this way, one, you are going to be torn apart and broken for by your own horses. So your emotions are your worst enemies when they play havoc with you. And if you have enough discipline to channel your emotions, then your emotions make you alive, enthusiastic. They give you what we call in yoga bhavana. That means a sort of enthusiastic energy. And then you sleep 2 hours less in the night, and you do a lot of meditation and a lot of wild things precisely because you have intense emotions. So in yoga, in tantric yoga, we love intense emotions. If any one of you is very intense emotionally, I love you for that. The only danger is you don't communicate and you don't cooperate and you let those emotions tear you apart. Then you are a fool. You are dying by the power of your own horses. Those horses have to be harnessed, put in a line so that they draw all in the same direction. Your anger has to go to God. Your fear has to go to God. Your joy has to go to God. Your pleasure has to go to God. Your enthusiasm, every emotion which you have has to be harnessed in the direction of your personal development. Finally, we talk about the mind. Many people are afraid of the mind. Leave your mind at the entrance. Take all the books and throw them to the dustbin. That's a Vedantic statement, that your mind is your enemy. But your mind is not your enemy when your mind thinks good things. If you think about Shambhala day and night, then your mind is not your enemy, it's your best friend, because it puts you in resonance with Shambhala. If your mind, when it goes crazy and starts stupid things, you take it back and say, Hamsa, 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 your mind is your friend. There's nothing wrong with the mind. The only wrong thing with the mind is when the mind does what it wants. But you have to be able, therefore, to educate the mind, not to kill the mind. Killing the mind doesn't solve the problem, really. Because as long as you live in this universe, you will have a mental body. And if you will have a mental body, you will have a mind. And it's not possible to exist in this universe. People who try to destroy their body, energy, emotions, mind, it's basically like they are suicidal. They simply want to quit this world forever. However, that's not the end. Try to think about one of the most illustrious examples. Buddha. Buddha reached enlightenment, according to Buddhist history, around the age of 36. He ran away from home when he was 30, and he practiced 6 years like crazy, and one day, under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, he reached enlightenment. But what did he do after 36? Did he die? No. Buddha lived 40 plus more years as a simple monk on the face of the earth. And in those 40-something years, he wrote the Buddhist canon. He gave the famous sutras and speeches. He gave the elegant discourses, the Dhammapada and all the rest. He did a lot of things. Buddha, Swami Vivekananda of India 100 years ago, he said, according to me, Buddha is one of the greatest karma yogis that lived on the face of this earth. Because he reached enlightenment, and then what did he do with the next 40 years of biological life that he had? He lived them on earth, using his mind, using his body, using his life force, and he lived a long life, and in that long life he educated a lot of people, and he created an institution called Buddhism and the Buddhist Sangha, which exists until today. It all started in 40 years by Buddha. And of course, by his devoted disciples afterwards who continued that work. And therefore, remember, there is nothing wrong with the mind. And if any one of you, and I wish it will happen quick for those of you who really look for it, if any one of you in this hall are going to reach the state of samadhi and nirvana in this lifetime, remember that after that, there comes an eternity as well. There is the rest of your life. And what are you going to do in the rest of your life without mind, emotions, body, energy? Nothing. It's a utopia to think that you can reach spiritual freedom by killing your body, energy, emotions, and mind. It can work by diminishing them, but then in the moment when you are over the bump, over the top, then what? Those things are still there unless you choose to die. There are people in India and Tibet, they reach nirvana, they are in the lotus pose, they stay like this, they swallow their tongue or whatever they do, they don't breathe, 28 days, 1 month, gone. They find the body in the forest. This is a yogi who died in samadhi, who died in meditation. That's not what yoga recommends. That's not what the spiritual traditions of this world recommend, that you reach nirvana and then you just buzz off and let everybody in trouble. You have to bring a contribution. That's why there is the bodhisattva vow in Buddhism, that first you take a vow that even if I'm going to reach nirvana, I'm not going to egoistically take it just for myself and leave everybody and all that. So what I'm trying to say here is this: the tantric tradition, by accepting the body, the energy, the life force, the emotions, the mind, the first koshas, the Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, and Vijnanamaya kosha, is generating a different philosophy of life, a different goal, a different lifestyle. And I think I can sum it up to conclude this conference by telling you an example which one of my teachers told to me 30 years ago, or more than 30 years ago. And at that time, I really did not understand it. I was very conditioned by Yogananda, Shivananda, Ramakrishna, all these Vedantic teachers, and I was like really wild to get away from Maya and to reach Nirvana. And I was so polarized, like go to spirit, screw the matter, and whatever is left behind, that I couldn't even understand. It took me a couple of years as I went into Kashmiri Shaivism and monistic spirituality, which here in Agama we give it to you even in advance a little bit, in workshops and stuff like this, until I fully understood this parable. He told me a parable which I found in books, like it's classical in India. It's been vehiculated. Very few people understand it if they don't understand this thing which I said tonight. A monk, a sadhu, a sannyasi from India, but not a tantric one, a Vedantic one, is sleeping, is pilgrimaging, and he sleeps under a tree. And a guy who is a poet, a bohemian, an artist, basically a person who doesn't practice any spirituality, comes and sleeps under the same tree. It's a resting place on a trail. In the morning when they wake up, they discover that that tree was actually an oracle. It's one of these holy trees. It's an altar, and they slept in a holy place. And the spirit of the place, or something like this, appears to them, and he says, because you slept in this blessed place without even knowing, I have a blessing from the gods for you. The gods are going to answer a question for each one of you. If you need to know something, the gods will answer. So the holy man immediately asks, how long time before I reach samadhi? And the gods answer through this spirit, which says 6 lifetimes. 6 lifetimes compared with 1,000,000 years is relatively little. It means you are in the zone. You are in the last rush. You are kind of almost there. You are a bodhisattva, and soon you will be a Buddha. You are close to the goal. And of course, the holy man goes like, oh no, another 6 lifetimes of spiritual efforts. They're like, I thought I could fix it in this life. Okay, he just can hope that the gods are lying or playing tricks with him. He doesn't really like the answer. The other guy didn't have any answer, but seeing that this guy asks this, is what about me? At which this guy asks, interiorizing, and receives the answers for the gods. He says, for you, there are so many lives left as many leaves there are in this tree. There are like thousands of leaves on that tree, At which the irresponsible guy leaps with joy and says, great, a great number of lifetimes where I can come back and have a lot of fun in this world. At which the spirit says, actually, this was a trick of the gods to prove your spiritual level. Because you have reached this state where you don't care anymore about it, you are actually free as we speak. So this was your last life. Like you are now enlightened. This is a tantric parable because it basically says that this man had reached to a level where he realized, like, after, okay, you reach enlightenment. Like Patanjali. Patanjali reached enlightenment 25 centuries ago. Good for him. He wrote about Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Good for him. He helped a lot of people and so on. Where is he now? What's he doing now? No, I asked my Indian guru, where is Patanjali and Ramakrishna now? Oh, they are in Brahma Loka. Good. They are in Brahma Loka. They still exist somewhere, therefore. Isn't it an idiotic thing to say, I'm going to reach nirvana and then I'm going to be nowhere? You're not going to be nowhere because you are in a universe created by the cosmic consciousness, which is everything and everywhere. You cannot escape from this universe wherever you go because this universe is Shiva and Shakti, and it's impossible for any human being to get out of Shiva and Shakti. There's nothing out of Shiva and Shakti because Shiva and Shakti are 100%. They are the universe and the spirit which enlivens it. And therefore, it's ridiculous to take a pedagogic path in which you say, I'm going to liberate myself from this universe, than to find yourself that for the rest of the eternity, you are part of this universe. In a privileged position. Now you are a Buddha, but still you are part of this reality. So since you are part of this reality, if Patanjali tomorrow decides to reincarnate on the face of planet Earth out of compassion, as a service to Shambhala, he decides to be one of the great spiritual teachers of the 21st century. And tomorrow, in 9 months, he will be born as a baby somewhere in a country. And that will become Patanjali number 2, the reincarnation of Patanjali. Will not he need a good body? Will not he need great energy to accomplish things? Will not he need strong emotions like love for God or something which motivates him? Will he not need a strong mind to read his own Yoga Sutra from a previous life and understand it or something? Of course he will. Therefore, Patanjali himself is denied his own goal because he says, you reach Kaivalya. What Kaivalya? Because the universe is still here. It doesn't go anywhere. And therefore, you have to cope with this reality. To reach the spiritual reality, it means that you have awakened spiritually, but all the gifts of this universe are there. If people say, I am an eloquent speaker. If I am an eloquent speaker, doesn't this serve you better? What would you do with me if I would be an inept speaker speaking a lousy English language? You'd say, Swami seems to be very intelligent, and we heard he knows a lot of yoga, but unfortunately he's a total idiot when it comes to speaking, and he cannot really convey to us. Isn't it better for you that I'm a good speaker, and I managed to make myself understood by you? To be a good speaker, to be eloquent is like a riddhi, a siddhi. It's just a small thing, and I could be eloquent without doing spirituality. I could be eloquent. Adolf Hitler apparently was very eloquent and convinced a lot of people. No? So you can be eloquent for good causes or bad causes. But the fact that I am eloquent, doesn't it serve this cause right now, here? It does. And that's why, remember, there is no existence outside of this universe. Yeah, it might be that you are not in the physical universe with a body made of flesh and blood. But then you will still exist in the astral universe like Sri Yukteswar. Or you will go into the causal universe like, the great deities or something. But still you will exist somewhere on the 7 levels of Prakriti. You can't really get out of Prakriti, existentially speaking. Only in spirit you can rejoin Purusha, but then existence continues. Because existence is eternal and divine. That's why I'm saying to everybody, the tantric tradition is actually the right angle. This is the holistic teaching This is the full teaching of spirituality. This is the integral approach to spirituality. And that's why there are many hybrid forms, but the goals and the lifestyles and the philosophy of the Tantric Yoga, I consider it most complete. I have learned a lot of Vedanta, and I could be a Vedantic teacher. But I don't believe that Vedanta is the complete teaching. I believe that Vedanta is a white lie, is a pedagogic motivating method. It did motivate me for a few years, and I'm very grateful to Vedanta. But I feel, I know, that Vedanta is not the ultimate expression of the truth. On the other hand, I know that the full expression of the holistic truth, the monistic truth, like in the Tantric tradition, can be confusing. And that's why I'm very careful about when and how I express it in Agama, in workshops and others. We go gradually, we tread gradually, so as not to destroy people's motivations and energy. But remember that this makes that the Tantric Yoga has other opinions. For example, in normal Vedanta, just with this I can conclude, to understand the difference of lifestyle, the complete difference of lifestyle. People like those living in a Buddhist monastery not far from here, they think that any input of the five senses would create attachment, and if you are attached, you are going to create samskaras, and if you have samskaras, you are going to reincarnate again because you are attached to this world. So if you like falafels, and if you eat too many falafels, you are going to have a samskara for falafels, and then when you will be floating in the astral world, something in your subconscious mind will say, I wish I had a body and I lived in Israel and I ate tons of falafels. And then your subconscious mind will say, your wish is my command. Boom! Get born in Israel and eat falafels till you turn green. So the same thing, like all the Buddhists and all the masters, they say any input of the senses can attach you. If you drink hot chocolate and you love hot chocolate becomes your attachment. If you love sex, sex becomes your attachment. If you love beautiful sunsets and aesthetic landscapes or things, you are conditioned because you say, I cannot live in an ugly place. You shouldn't care. You should be able to live in a place ugly or not ugly. It doesn't matter. But if you are too much attached to comfort and aesthetics, then that becomes your curse because it becomes your tie. It becomes your attachment. And that's why all these non-tantric religions, they say, cut the ties, cut the ties, cut the ties, cut the ties, detach, detach, cut everything. You don't want everything. Tantra says, in the blissful sensation produced by a good hot chocolate, there is Ananda, Shakti, bliss, Samadhi, and the Shiva consciousness. All of it is in that hot chocolate. The problem is that everybody drinks hot chocolate absent-mindedly. You don't put awareness in it. It's like a walking meditation in Buddhism. You have to drink hot chocolate like the tea ceremony in Zen Buddhism. It has to be fully aware, exploring, going and finding God in the hot chocolate. There is God in sex. There is God in a beautiful sunset. There is God in hot chocolate. So the tantrics are not running from fun sensations. The tantrics are cultivating them. They say, oh, yesterday we had sex, but I was a little bit absent-minded. I didn't really catch that thing. Let's do it again today. Like, I want to practice sex until I can see Shiva and Shakti in it. That's when sex has finally taken me back. So instead of running away from chocolate, I go through chocolate. That's a different attitude, and it has to be understood. Tantra does exactly the things around. If you are a Christian monk and you eat too good food, everybody else in the monastery will point fingers at you and will say, Walter is a glutton. In Tantra, Walter is practicing gluttonry on purpose. Only he is not glutton, he becomes gourmet. He just goes and enjoys. And people say, what are you enjoying so much, that chocolate, Walter? And he says, I'm looking for Shiva. It's right here in the taste. This ecstatic taste which is given to me by this chocolate, this pleasure is a drop, a droplet, a little drop from the ocean of pleasure which Shiva experiences right now as universal bliss. So I want to be able to go from this drop to the origin. I want to connect via chocolate. I can connect with the happiness of Shiva, and via a beautiful sunset, and via reading a good book or watching a good movie. Any emotion. any thought, everything can be guided. There's an art. It's not simple. That's why in Tantra you need a guru, because there are many catches and many pitfalls. But there is a way which is called this Tantric Yoga. So the Tantric Yoga, to make the long story short, is a spiritual path, accelerating your evolution. The Tibetan gurus speak about some forms of Tantra, and they say Tantra is the yoga of reaching nirvana in one lifetime. Like not in 6 lifetimes, like for that guy in one lifetime. Like it is such an intense practice that either you do it in the wrong way, and then it's your problem, or if you do it right, it's going to churn you and no break. There are many people who do 2 years of spirituality, and then they start scratching their ears. Like, I'm doing some yoga and Tantra, But the truth is you are doing moonwalking like Michael Jackson. You're going nowhere. You're treading on the same spot. You pretend you are doing, but you're not doing. Tantra and yoga, this Tantric yoga, is made in such a way that it prods you. There's not a moment. You can't stay. You go. Something will change, something you will do. And that's why I, for one, have received this from my teachers. I cannot honestly say that I have had in front of me classical yoga, Vedantic yoga, Tantric yoga, Tibetan Buddhism, Theravada, and so on, and I kind of wisely chose one of them. I don't know how I came to be in Tantric yoga. I just got parachuted into Tantric yoga. It's like life took me into this. My teachers were like that, and somehow the cosmic forces, the masters of Shambhala and the spiritual forces, they guided me with their invisible hand. This is what I am. This is what I do nowadays. I am the heir of this Tantric yoga here in Agama. It's one of the last strong schools of Tantric yoga on the face of this earth. And we are the stewards, the preservers, we are the guardians of this tradition which we pass to you. And we hope that this tradition will grow again, become great, and that it will survive many years, many centuries, many millennia. Because I personally think that Tantric yoga is the salt of the earth. It's the best thing which I encountered in my life. And it's like I would like to go on the rooftops and shout it to the whole world that everybody deserves to hear about how good Hatha Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, Laya Yoga, and other branches of Tantric Yoga are, because they did a great good to me. I have seen them doing a great good to others, including to you, and I know for sure that in the future they will bring great benefit and great good to a great many lot of people. And that's why Tantric Yoga, we are here in a school of Tantric Yoga, and these are its characteristics. Its main difference is philosophical. Tantric Yoga says that Shiva and Shakti, spirit and matter, have sex with each other, love each other, dance with each other. They are together. There is no distinction between spirit and matter. Prakriti or Mother Nature is just God materialized. It's just a visible part of God. It's the visible body of God. And therefore you should not be afraid of nature. You should not be afraid of Shakti. These people say, oh, but Maya can confuse me. Then what does it cost you to get down on your knees and to say, my dear Cosmic Mother, Shakti, Maya, I know who you are. My Guru told me who you are. And please stop confusing me. Now I know who you are. And I'm begging you like a child begs its mother, show me the way. May your invisible hand guide me so that I get to the harbor, to a safe harbor, so that I cross the ocean of existence in no time. Instead of treating Shakti as a boogeyman, as an unknown samsara which is threatening me, why don't I propitiate it? Pray to it and say, it's enough. I understood that there is divine. Even an atom cannot exist without the cosmic consciousness. Everything is bathed in the cosmic consciousness. So even when I see an atom, I see the existence of the divine. Make me see it. Instead of making me see my knees and my body, just a piece of flesh and bone, make me see God in this, through this, via everything. That's the Tantric attitude. Instead of turning your back to nature and to matter, use it. Because your cosmic mother is waiting for you to ask for help. It was Jesus who said, if you think that you can give what's best to your children, and as soon as somebody does something, you always find a smart ass who says, that's not the right thing to do. That's not good. No, everybody thinks they know best. If you think that you know what's best for your children, how much more does the universal cosmic consciousness, which Jesus calls the Father in heaven, how much more does the Father know what each and every one of you needs every moment? And if you who are limited and often incapable still strive to give to your children what is good for them, how much more the Cosmic Father, who is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, will do that. Especially if asked, because there is a free will. There is a dimension of free will. And Ramakrishna, in the 19th century, taking over the saying of Jesus, he says, why don't you trust your Cosmic Mother? Because he says, what mother, when the child is screaming, the mother drops everything from her hand and like a hawk, she runs to see what's wrong with the child. Who of you thinks that you are going to appeal your Cosmic Mother and your Cosmic Mother is going to be a bitch and ignore you? The Cosmic Mother seems to be a bitch and ignore you precisely because you don't propitiate her, because you don't ask her. And then there is this dimension. Yeah, but my Cosmic Mother should help me anyway. No. If you behave with ignorance, then you are asking cosmic forces to come and force your free will. Here is some help for you, although you didn't ask for it. No. You will never get a help which you did not ask for. And that is why, please remember, that's a fundamental difference. We can be afraid of life. We can be afraid of matter. We can be afraid of the universe. But we can also pray to the matter and to the universe. Be a good mother to me. I understand that you are dancing the dance of death on ignorant people's heads. That's the game of life. The lion is eating the gazelle. And it's not nice to see. And it looks very cruel and very bloody. And that's how this planet is built. We didn't make it like this. It was made like this by Mother Nature. So nature can be terrible. And there are tornadoes and earthquakes and tsunamis and man-made things as well, wars and other things, and it's part of nature as it is, and at the same time, nature can become your mother if you treat her as such. That's the tantric approach. Don't run from the nature. Go through the nature. The nature is your best friend, but you have to take a decision. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to deliberately cooperate with your Cosmic Mother, and then suddenly the perspective changes. I would talk more, but it gets late. I wanted tonight to make you understand what is Tantric Yoga. This is where you find Agama. We spoke about metaphysics and the need for your spirit to evolve, to be revealed, to be polished like a diamond. We spoke today about the fact that there exist spiritual methods for doing this faster, faster, faster. And one of them is Tantric Yoga, which is a very special and rare method. And next week, if everything goes as planned, I'm going to tell you where we are with Agama. So if you choose to be here 1 week, 1 year, or the rest of your life, you will at least know exactly what to expect from Agama as a spiritual method. How do we function inside this Tantric Yoga? Because Tantric Yoga is a very big concept. It's like an umbrella concept. And even Agama does not represent all the Tantric Yoga. It represents some very powerful directions in Tantric Yoga. That will be the contents for next week, and then we finish this series of 3 lectures. Thank you all for joining tonight and being patient. It's a bit long and I kept you later. With this we have finished for tonight. And if you have any questions which result from this, remember that all those of you who are in second level and up, you can meet me on Tuesdays at the Q&As, and you can ask me questions in writing or in direct speech, and I can give you more elucidations about this. Enough for tonight.